prosecuted. I hope I'm not misquoting the president. That's what he said.
He said he will not shame them, but he will arrest them.
He will arrest them. So the first question we should be asking as Kenyans, who was the giver? Who was the giver? And who sent the giver? And if you're telling us that you know who was the giver, how many days have passed now? It's almost close to a week.
A weekend.
Yeah, it's to be a week on Wednesday.
And we haven't seen any action. What that tells me is that the government itself is engaging in corrupt practices. That the government itself deliberately schemes to influence through bribery members of parliament, because the pronouncement is being made by the president. And then what does that tell you about our institutions? It tells you that our institutions that are embedded in our constitution, that are meant to fight corruption, that are meant to ensure that we have integrity, are not working, And Dr. will tell you that if this was happening in a country that respects democracy, either the president or somebody top in government would have faced some dire consequences. You saw what happened in South Korea. Was that last year?
South Korea, well, they even jailed the former president.
President Park.
Bangladesh one has just been arrested.
Yeah, you can imagine. President Park was put in 2018 because she tried to influence the fiscal position, financial fiscal position of the country, by telling banks not to disclose that the government owed them money, so that the financial position of our country looks like it's very healthy. And she's in. But in this country, a pronouncement like that is made, and we're 7 days into that statement, and no action has been taken. It tells us that we're in a country where our system has totally broken down.
Are we looking at a total collapse? Because we can look at the political, because this position that the president took is tainted with a lot of politics. We know that. However, the underlying part of all of this shows us that the picture is a bit crazy. We often say that if you want to see the true picture of a nation, you look at the most vulnerable at that place at a particular time. The Shah stories are as old as this pronouncement. Every day for the last 7 days, there has been a different Shah issue. It's not just that Shah is not working.
Hospitals are closed.
It's that hospitals are closing. It's that civil servants go to hospitals, they cannot get care, and they've paid. It is that Shah regional offices around the country have closed. It's that you leave the country and you can't get Shah treatment for now because they're trying to sort things out. There's not enough money in the coffers. Private hospitals are owned 73 billion shillings. I could go on for hours. That's just health. We are going back to school today and tomorrow. We're writing 3 major exams this year. Before the end of the year, we still owe 7,000 shillings to these students. We are starting next year a new curriculum, a new section of the curriculum. We still don't have our ducks in a row. There are people in Kenya today whose drinking water is clear as this water bottle. They can't get clean drinking water. This is all happening today. And that's the lower layers. It would appear as though there's a lot of work to be done, but we spend it politicking.
I think, to be honest with you, I think if you look at the desire by Kenyans for change, one of the key issues that is emerging is the question of accountability. That there is no accountability in all these things you see, from Shah, from education, from infrastructure. You've seen the state of the accidents in our roads and all that. But let me pick up from somewhere where Senator Omogeni, started. The president also said that he is a consumer of raw intelligence, meaning, therefore, that he knows the things that are happening, for example, in our parliament. And then he went on to make a promise that I will not shame these people, but I will arrest them. So by now, honestly, some action ought to have been taken. If he's a consumer of intelligence, I'm assuming that NIS is feeding him with this intelligence. DCI has investigated. EACC, all the investigative arms of government. Really, that's one of the changes that Kenyans desire on the one hand. On the other hand also, if you read the political mood in the country, even going by the Ruto must go slogan or the one-term thing, again, that's a cry for change. And the president himself sometimes back came and said, you people say Ruto must go. How do you want me to go? The constitution provides mechanism via which he can go. he can actually resign. Because that's what there's a lot of dissatisfaction about his governance, the manner in which he's leading the government. He is himself actually has admitted that he bribed members of parliament. So
he admitted that he bribed members of parliament.
Well, when he said
the government,
when he said that he gave the 10 million was for what? And what's the source of that money? So Kenya, looking at the totality of all that, Kenyans actually desire change. And one of the things, the bigger issue is that they are dissatisfied with this government, and this government must go even immediately. Ministers who are not performing should be fired. They should be replaced. Or the entire government can resign. It's not a rocket science. There are many countries in the world where an entire government has actually resigned, and Kenyans go to a fresh election. Now, let's give this also a historical context. At independence, we were promised three things that Kenyans are still struggling with today in the 21st century. The eradication of poverty, disease, and ignorance. Yeah? If you look at the problems we're having with education, we've never eradicated ignorance. Food on the table, question of poverty. Healthcare, disease. So we've never really achieved all these three promises.
But why?
Because of the bad governments we have had historically. And I think the closest we came to addressing almost some of those issues when Kibaki actually even declared primary education free. At least. And I think at that time, many Kenyans will agree with you. It may not have been the best president, but at least there was a trickle-down effect even on the economy. After that, things just started going downhill. And I think for me, it's a failure of leadership generally, because even the parliamentarians cannot claim to be clean. Just like the Proverbs, said, there is an admission that they are being given money. I think it was the senator for Kirinyaga, is it Kirinyaga or Kirinyaga, who said that they were offered 10 million. And he spoke about it openly.
And you see, even as we have the discussion in terms of the country needs absolute change, we look at the corruption matters that we hear that members of parliament receive monies for them to be able to pass a bill or drop a bill, that there are senators who receive money to impeach a governor or not to impeach a governor. We've had stories of how during impeachment motions in parliament, and those that would be in the defense ask mmetembea namna gani, mmekuja hapa aje, wenzetu wamekuja namna fulani, mmetembea aje. But then again, you hear that some of these bribe money comes from the government, because members of parliament said we were given 200,000 to get rid of the deputy president. But here is a question where, with all that is happening in the country and the president speaking now, it has been touted by pundits that it is a political move, that the president wants to change this conversation to appear as though he is fighting corruption. But Senator,
he's not. He's fighting
is it
corruption.
Politics, or is he really fighting corruption?
See, he's fighting. He's actually not fighting corruption. If you look at, for example, the fact that President William Ruto has even ignored EACC, DCI. He's forming this I don't know what is it called?
Task force,
There's another task force.
That task force. So for what purpose? So what are you saying? And is the same. I'm sure EACC is in that, DPP is in that, everybody. So why not, for example, since he said he has, let's start from his own assertion that a consumer of raw intelligence, I know the people, we will not shame them, but we will arrest them. So we should have seen by now some people recording statements with the DCI and being arraigned in court. At least if we could start from there, because he himself has come out openly to say, and that's the change Kenyans want. If the president can actually walk the talk, then that's the kind of change that Kenyans are asking for.
Senator.
Yeah, I think this is just lip service from the president and just trying to play politics, because, to pick it up from Dr. Ekuru, in many democracies, Parliament can be a very good yardstick for ensuring that there is accountability from the presidency. Okay? And the issues that have come to the fore in the past 4 weeks or so dictate that we need to demand some serious answers from some of our key institutions, including the NSIs, including the EACC, including the DCI. Because allegations that have been made point to two institutions. One, it seems that the executive has been engaging in bribery. I think that's one of the issues that has come to the fore in the minds of Kenyans. Two, there is allegation being made that bribery takes place in Parliament. And that's a conversation we cannot ignore. When a dictator tells you that a president can resign, in fact, our constitution says that members of Parliament can also sack the president.
Impeach.
Can impeach him. And I don't think in a democracy like ours, when you look at how liberal our constitution is, I don't think a president should get away with allegations of bribery. What worse way can you...
How would it be different, Senator? Because that making of a statement, getting away with it, seems to be the modus operandi for many things. That a young man can be killed in a prison cell, that a young woman can be killed in a prison cell, that, you know, people can be disappeared without trace. People can be locked up without a charge in court or out the court process. And 3 weeks later, we've forgotten about it.
Or somebody can be shot in broad daylight.
Honestly,
and somebody can go to court and deny that it was them.
Honestly speaking,
Can it not just go away in the same way?
We have a big problem in our accountability mechanisms. You know, if Parliament can just sit back and, I mean, if you read the Constitution, Article 95, Parliament has got powers. Let me break it down. The National Assembly can initiate an impeachment of the president.
This same
and the
National
Senate,
Assembly.
Yes.
That's our Constitution.
That's what the Constitution says.
That's what the Constitution says.
Or they are sleeping on the job.
And you know, if you say you want to travel the continent of Africa, go down to South Africa and see how the accountability there works against sitting presidents. President Thabo Mbeki was recalled by his own party.
Yes.
What was the reason? Because he interfered with a corruption investigation against his political opponent, just by placing a call and trying to twist, you know, the investigations. He was forced to step down. Zuma engaged in bribery with some Asian businessmen.
And even went to jail.
Yeah.
And he went to jail. Okay. There is, I think, is it Bangladesh? Where a president has just been jailed for 6 months for contempt of court because she was told she's facing a charge of murder against 227 Bangladesh citizens. And then she said, oh, that's good. I've at least killed 227. It is confirmed.
Former
and
president of the Philippines, actually.
Yeah, Rodrigo, the one of Philippines, is telling you. He was picked from Manila, okay? On what allegations? He killed people on the pretext that he was fighting drugs. As we speak, he's been locked up in ICC because the world expects accountability against leaders and citizens in equal measure, okay? So we can't be in a country where you have seen 65, I think the record says 65 youths have been murdered.
Yes.
Simply because they stepped out to exercise their democratic right of picketing and demonstrating. And then it's on record. It's on record that the president himself said, if you find these guys picketing, shoot them in the legs, take them to hospitals, you take them to court. I mean, what is happening? I think we are building a very good file for the ICC because the pronouncements I've seen and what has happened make President Ruto a candidate for the ICC.
Let me ask
if you
a
follow
question.
the case he has told you of Rodrigo in Philippines, what was he? What is he charged with? Rodrigo used to give immunity to police officers who would kill Filipinos. And that's what is happening in this country, that the president is telling you, and by extension the CS, Interior, that you can kill innocent citizens, but we shall protect you. Yeah. If we borrow from best international practices, there should be an active file against the executive in Kenya.
And you know, the paradox is this. If you look at Kenya, I mean, the governments of Kenya, it's synonymous for one thing. Benchmarking. They make so many trips to some of these countries that have actually punished their leaders.
Yeah.
So if we are really going to benchmark, let's also benchmark when it comes to accountability and and people really taking responsibility. So there's a lot of pretense, and I think this is the kind of change Kenyans are actually tired. In fact, maybe to the risk of let me play a devil's advocate here, kidogo. I tend to think that actually there is a blessing in disguise in President William Ruto's presidency.
Okay.
Because I think there is one thing that I think President William Ruto managed to do is to somehow silence the fake dynastic claims in our country. Historically, those people have claimed to be dynasties. At least he's removed that. But I tend to think that he has given Kenyans the opportunity to now really deconstruct the person of him. Who is he? Starting from his promises in 2022. And I think Kenyans are now really looking at those boxes and saying, he promised this. Like now he abandoned, of course, the narrative of Wheelbarrow, Mutua Mjengo, Mamamboga, and all those, that narrative, that rosy narrative that, I'm coming for you. Me, I was a chicken seller myself, so I can relate to you. So Kenya is saying, no, but this person is now different. Starting from his cabinet, a cabinet of billionaires and multi-millionaires. So really, he is not one of our own. And I think that's the change that Kenyans are crying for. And that's why they are saying, Mr. President, we want change. And I think that change must begin with him. I think if we were today to remove Ruto from the face of Kenya's politics, perhaps that's one of the changes that Kenyans are actually crying for. This person cannot be the face of leadership in our country.
And yet, you operate within a rule of law under the Constitution. So Kenya is not a failed state. Kenya still operates within the boundaries of a constitution. And in order for certain processes to take place, that the Constitution must be called upon, again, going back to the issues of the National Assembly, Senator, because one must ask a question. There is this cesspool, according to the President, where all these things are happening, whether he's also paddling in the pool as well, But then we expect, according to the Constitution, that the people who are going to right these wrongs, whatever they may be, are still the same people who are paddling in the pool. How can it possibly be that the people that you want to actually set things right are people who may or may not have their hands already dirty? How do you do that?
Yeah, first, I don't, it's very unfair for the president to make blanket condemnation. It would have been a bit, neater if the president was to address a press and say, from the intelligence I've received, the following members of parliament who have been engaging in bribery, corruption, are under investigations. Okay, if part of those members are his own party chairman in parliament or the leadership, okay, so that we have a targeted way of dealing with the problem. But when you make a blanket condemnation and then you want Kenyans to condemn the entire institution, it's a bit unfair. But then again, now that we have this conversation, we need the institutions that are charged with ensuring that we have integrity. Chapter 6, who enforces Chapter 6? We have the EACC there. Okay, they are the best guys who should take action. If anybody is engaged in bribery, if a governor has withdrawn 150 million shillings, and the president tells us it's public money withdrawn from the accounts of a county government,
Yes.
What is the role of NSIs? How can EACC be in office and somebody is just walking into the accounts of a government entity called a county government and you withdraw 150 million shillings and nothing happens? Not even a preventive measure. Yet there is a law that tells us I shouldn't withdraw more than $1 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I walk to the bank this morning and I may not have that money, but if I was to walk in and I want to withdraw 1.1 million, I'll be told to give a justification where I'm withdrawing money, where I'm taking this money. Now, if you are telling us that in this country called Kenya, somebody walks into government coffers and withdraws 150 million shillings, and then spends it on bribery, do we have a country?
Which brings the question, is there any sincerity when we talk about fighting corruption in the country? And I start from this pretext that the house that is now calling the shots and accusing others has been accused of engaging bribery. If you look at empowerment, that is money that is not budgeted for. But you look at executive and the leadership spending this money without explaining where these monies are coming from. You talk about SHA, which is a government project. And in this paper today, we're talking about hospitals that are getting up to 20 million shillings, yet they are ghost hospitals. You know, we're talking about e-citizen and the billions of shillings that are getting lost again in an institution that is run by the government of Kenya. And all these, we are still silent on it. And you talk about a change that we want. And one asks, is the current political dispensation ready for the change that Kenyans are asking for? Wakili?
It has never been ready. And I don't think it will be ready until Kenyans probably just, again, cause another revolution. And maybe the kind of change that Kenyans actually are asking for is that a revolution to host this. In fact, before I lose my point on the question of withdrawal of 150 million, you know, there's a system in government called IFMIS,
Yes.
Integrated Financial Management System. So one person cannot operate that system. There are approvals. That's why it's integrated. So here, what we are looking into here is a conspiracy to actually commit a crime. There are many people who may have been involved, actually were involved in the withdrawal of this money. And that therefore means if one person is able to walk in and withdraw 150 million from our government coffers, then it means that financial system has failed. And therefore, and we don't even know how much money now we have lost.
Or that it has been approved by somebody else.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So President Ruto, in fact, this is just a continuation of the previous administration, which Ruto was part of. President Ruto himself openly said that we're losing 2 billion daily. Daily. I mean, come on. Are you saying that we don't have a central bank? We don't have a Ministry of Treasury? You know, so, and when a president of a republic admits openly, then what action is he taking? When President William, and you can see President William Ruto is also continuing that narrative of Uhuru, but he's doing nothing about it. And I think that's the change that Kenyans are asking. Honestly, do we even have a government of the day with all these admissions? You know, so I think generally speaking, honestly, things are falling apart. Today, I don't know you guys, but today, if you go to a government office, for example, even now to report just a crime, sometimes people have told me, I mean, I'm a practicing law advocate, and people have come to tell me, even just to get that OB, kuandikiwa hiyo OB tu, lazima ununue lunch.
It has happened to me, so yeah I hear you.
Passport, yeah, you pay for a passport online. Alafu you're told there are no booklets. So if you are really to analyze many of these things, I think what Kenyans are asking, just in a nutshell, you know, I think we just need a total overhaul of the governance, or the government just to go home and Kenyans to go probably to seek a fresh mandate. And you can see the dissatisfaction everywhere. Sometimes I decide to just use Uber. And I'm telling you, even when President William Ruto says that he wants to run again in 2027, he will have to pull a miracle. Because everywhere and everybody you speak to, this is the most hated president in the history of our country. Talk to anybody. In fact, you guys just do an opinion poll on the streets. I've hardly met anybody who says, okay, I think let's give this president a chance. No, people want him gone like yesterday. And government, there's no service actually happening.
If we look at why nations fail, Senator, the different things, I mean, we are taught this in the schools of international relations, and we hear things like weak or extractive institutions, if you want to talk about extractive institutions and link it to 150 million shillings, lack of rule of law and property rights, political instability and conflict, economic dependence and poor diversification, poor education and human capital development, failure to adapt to changes. Those are some of the core ideas around why nations fail. Do we see some of those things happening in Kenya today? And if so, what can be the interventions that stop the bleed? Because yes, we can lament, and I think it is important to do so. It is cathartic at some point.
Yeah, first,
but you need to now look towards...
First, you know, you posed a question that you have not allowed us to respond to.
Go, please.
Empowerment programs. Last week or the other week, I saw the president mobilized 8,000 people from the larger Gusii region. In State
Your county
House.
was one of them, yes?
Yes. And word out there is that at the end of the meeting, each person was given 10,000 shillings. How much is that, Doctor?
10,000 times 8,000.
That's right. Is it 80 million?
80 million.
80 million.
Okay. 80 million.
I think so.
Given in
Yes,
State
it's
House.
80 million.
million.
Yes.
Even in
80
State House and in State House, if you have read history, you go to the White House, you read out biographies, you will find that there are people who will record. Even there's even phone tappings that happen in the State House on the happenings. So if NSIS wanted to give us a report, they can produce it even tomorrow. Follow that with what's happening in empowerment forums, where you can make a quick additions and you find the deputy president is spending 50 million in a month. Now, where does this money come from?
If not more.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah.
Where does this money come from? And you are the president trying to just thumb, saying, I pushed through the anti-money laundering law. Yet he's engaged in money laundering. I mean, the international community should take notice of what is happening in Kenya. You can't, if we challenge the president today, can you tell us the source of these 80 million shillings? Where was this money withdrawn from?
That's just a drop.
Yeah. How can you have a country where people work? I'm just trying to imagine. Daktari have never handled 80 million shillings cash. How was this money carried? Did somebody come with it in a truck to State House, parked it there and said, now let us sit down and put it in envelopes, 10,000
In a country that you can't walk with a million shillings.
In a million shillings. I mean,
And you can imagine what 80 million will do, for example, just in even a small dispensary.
yes. And then you link it now with what you have just posed to me. Weak institutions. How can EACC, an independent body, I was the chair, Daktari, when we were fighting day and night, and you had
In the council.
committee of
Experts.
And we were fighting day and night to entrench EACC in the constitution, in the hope that if we entrench them in the constitution, they will be fearless, okay? They will be independent, and they will pursue war against corruption without fear or favor. To crown it up, the head of that institution is now a bishop. So he should be fearless, Bishop Ogende. But how do you allow a president to engage? I respect my president, I mean, really, but how can you allow to engage in acts that really, when you look at them, it's money laundering? You know, walking around with cash and giving people this cash, and then anti-money laundering says you should not dispense money whose source cannot be explained.
Cannot be explained.
That's what anti-money laundering is. So can anybody today, if EACC was to be summoned even to Parliament, will they tell us where was this money withdrawn from? Was it private money or it was government money? If you go to countries like the US, you know, when you invite guests to White House, you disclose whether they are coming there as state guests or private. If it's private, even the tea they take, you get a bill as a president.
Yes.
You get a bill.
If you're taking your children on the presidential jet, you pay for them.
You pay for them. Even the guests who come in, if you entertain people and these are your private guests, you get a bill. In White House, you get a bill and you're told this one pay. So when these delegations come to State House for those campaigns, who foots the bill?
So this is the question.
The only person now, that takes us to the answer, what you asked. Our institutions are letting us down. You know, if EACC or NSIS was to come up with a very good report and present it to Parliament, why wouldn't the Parliament then proceed to impeach? Okay? But our institutions are engaging in self-censorship.
Why wouldn't Parliament then be bold enough to impeach? And this is a question here. Because they are the institution that has been granted the power to do just that. Because this is not conjecture, Senator. Dr. This is not that let's see and look at Kenya and imagine there's a situation whereby unexplained monies are finding their way all over the place.
Everywhere.
This is not imagined. This is seen.
It's real.
It's
real.
So if institutions in other countries, for example, we've given the examples of Bangladesh this morning, we've talked about Singapore, we've talked, I mean, we've not gone to Brazil on the other side of the world where people have been jailed for things that they did before. And it was not just your run-of-the-mill anybody civil servant. These are presidents. So who's responsible for making sure that these things are actually done?
At the end of the day, the buck stops with the president.
He's not going to arrest himself, Dr.
No, he will not arrest himself, but he has also come out to say, you want me to go, do you want me to go? There are mechanisms in the constitution. He can resign. Because now what Kenyans are actually saying, we don't want you. You have failed us, you've lied to us. In fact, now President William Ruto, that's why the slogan Kasongo, Kahongo have become the norm, in places. People see him as a liar. And in fact, one of the changes I think maybe Kenyans are asking, and maybe President William Ruto need to have some introspection. It's common knowledge that, among Kenyans speak, that he's the most corrupt politician. It's common knowledge. He's even been called names like Arap Mashamba and all that. So can he shed off that tag first? Yeah? Until Ruto honestly sheds off that tag of being a corrupt leader, then he cannot actually castigate others. Not that we are saying it's okay for the others also to keep on have these practices of corruption, but at least he himself is being seen in the eyes of Kenyans. It's not a court saying this for the first time, or Mogeni here, Senator. It is a perception, whether real or imagined. That is his image. So, like the senator has actually said, the sources of this money really must be disclosed. But I also doubt that these institutions aren't giving him the intel, because he admitted that he's a consumer of raw intelligence. Meaning, therefore, some of these institutions actually are giving the president information about bad governance, corruption, but he has refused to take action. And the other day, and by the way, when people talk about interference with this institution, I see nothing wrong with the president saying, the same way he formed this multitask agency, I see nothing wrong with him having a session with the Chief Justice, with the EACC, with the DCI and DPP, and tell them, guys, things are falling apart in the country. Can we at least, take our mandates seriously? It doesn't have to direct them. Yeah, he can meet up with Parliament, tell Parliament, things are not looking good, because I'm sure he gets intelligence about how Kenyans are dissatisfied with his leadership.
Let me just throw a spanner in the works, right? So the president says he is the consumer of raw intelligence, and this intelligence is given to him by independent institutions. Talk about NIS, talk about the police, talk about EACC. But one would
I'm sure even parliamentarians give him information about who has been bribed.
But here's a question where the president seems as though he is using these raw information, this intelligence, for his own political expediency. Because one would argue you use that to impeach the deputy president, say. You use that information to deal with those members of parliament who are thought to be anti-government. So therefore, is it a question of the president controlling the independent institutions, or the independent institutions, including Parliament, have ceded their power and allowed the executive to control the Senate?
You saw after elections what happened.
Immediately.
After the elections, the first scheme was to dismantle the majority of the opposition in Parliament.
Which was
okay? Because President Ruto knew that
he didn't have majority.
If he leaves the opposition to be in the majority, then there are all these risks, including getting a process that can remove him constitutionally through an impeachment. So the first thing he did was to buy off members of the opposition. And then that takes us to the problem I have with Kenyans. This mindset of being in government is the only way that a region can develop. I mean, we were given a very progressive constitution in 2010. You go to national values at chapter 10. It talks of equity, it talks of fairness. It does not allow a president to take office and engage in a process that discriminates regions that are perceived to be opposition. But you'll find members of parliament will say, I have left opposition to go to government so that I can milk the cow, so that my people get development. Yet, the budget making process is so clear that the government will initiate the idea. It will make the proposals. But the final say is on the floor of parliament. So you don't need to have an excuse. I don't think it's a crime to be in the opposition.
No,
it's not. But then
it's part of our democracy.
It's part of our democracy. And you have followed politics. You saw how long the Labour has been out of government in the UK. But they didn't say, now we are going to auction the Labour and join the Conservative in government. No,
they remain there.
They said we'll come with an agenda, a different agenda for moving the UK forward, and then convince people that we are the right guys to vote in to form the new government. But in this country, you want to tell us that if you lose in an election, the best thing to do is to say, now I'm going to join government so that my region can develop. No, you should be giving us an alternative, like what you have just pointed to us this morning. Sure. Do you know about 70 regional offices have been closed across the country?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's not working.
Across the country.
But I have a question for you, Senator.
Let me conclude this way.
Yeah.
I want us to put pressure on the right institutions.
Yeah.
You know how President Nixon was impeached?
Yes.
It was all about information that was shared by the intelligence.
Yeah.
About the recordings that took place
Watergate
in the White House on the Whitegate scandal. Is it called
Watergate? Yes.
The Watergate scandal. Okay? And when the issue came out, President Nixon said, I enjoy immunity, so the recordings that took place are in the White House and I will not allow them to be released. Okay? But then, just to demonstrate how important an institution can be, somebody went to the Supreme Court and sought for an order, okay, for that information that was in those tapes to be released and to be made public to assist Congress progress the impeachment. And the moment that information was out there, Nixon resigned. Okay? So we want our institutions to tell us what is the source of this money that is carried in boxes or in trucks. Where does this money, from which account? Because you can't manufacture money, Dr.
Maybe they do.
Because we really must get answers. And the best people to do this is we want somebody from either NSIS or ESC, because the accountability demands that if Kenyans want to get certain information, they should get it. And once the information is out there, then the next debate should be, what do we do within the information that is in our possession? So the money in State House should be looked at like the tapes that President Nixon had in the White House.
Senator, I have a question for you before we finish this show.
Well, we're not finishing, so we still have some time because there's some things we need to interrogate this morning.
But I think generally now we agree that there is failure both from the political leadership and in government. Yeah, because parliamentarians have failed in their cardinal rule of oversighting, enacting legislation that are people-friendly and representation. That, honestly, we can agree it's a failure from the parliament. That's why you can hear of this talk of being bought. The opposition has been dismantled. But, Senator, you are a member of ODM. As your party failed Kenyans, especially your leadership, the top leadership, because they are lying to Kenyans about this thing called broad-based government, which is really now blood-based government, because it's sucking up Kenyans. So as your party, as the opposition, failed us, because you guys got a substantial number of votes, which means that representation has actually now been dismantled to oversight government. Have you failed us?
I think if you ask me, you have brought two things which should be of concern to Kenyans. Issue of legislation, okay? Because if indeed, and I think the jury is out there, but if indeed an allegation can be made that to pass a law in parliament, you bribe members of parliament. Shouldn't that worry Kenyans?
It should worry Kenyans.
It should worry Kenyans.
It's being passed for personal reasons.
I think, Daktari, we now need to be a bit innovative as a country and relook at the process of legislating. You know, when you put it in the Constitution, like in Article 18, that Parliament will involve, the word used, I believe, is involve the people through public participation in legislation. How detailed should be the participation? You
And
know,
the courts have since
I
ruled
think
that it
where
has
we
to be
have-
meaningful participation.
yeah, but I think the court needs to take it further, you know, because in countries that, involve the people, if you go to the Constitution of Australia, it actually talks of, if you want to change the Constitution, there must be a referendum in the entire Constitution.
In Switzerland, they voted.
But
they
what-
go for referendum
but what-
almost every,
What they
on
do,
everything.
what the Australians have done is to extend that referendum even to legislations. Okay? Because I believe the concept was that you can't trust parliamentarians. What he's telling you about Switzerland, theirs is very elaborate.
They vote on almost everything.
Every legislation that comes up in Parliament must be voted. In fact, theirs is so liberal that you can pass it, you can pass a legislation, but the people can initiate a referendum to counter. And if the referendum of the people votes against that law, the law fails.
Okay.
So I think, Daktari, public participation in Kenya should now change to become an issue where the people vote directly. Because a lot of doubt is being created on our legislative process as parliamentarians. So the only safeguard, because we are here, I think, discussing brainstorming
Yes,
on what
indeed.
we can do with this country of ours we call Kenya, so that we make it less attractive,
But
that
is it-
we don't need to bribe members. Let us give the power to the people, so that if we pass any legislation, we still throw it back to the people. Public involvement should be upscaled to mean that you and I vote. If you're increasing
And it
our-
goes direct to a
it
decision.
goes direct. Look
So
at
if that would
look
be the
at
case, Senator, is
the
there a
housing.
need- Is
You
there a
see-
need for Parliament?
Look at you can. He has told you in Switzerland you have the people,
still
but
need
you still
parliament.
involve this parliament, but you still involve the people. Okay, you can have the two. In Australia, to change, if you want to change a local law, okay, you say now bars will be opened
All
up to
24
up to
hours.
11. No, from 9 p.m. to 11. You go to the people and they vote.
Exactly.
You get it?
Yes.
Now, here in Kenya, you come with a law you call housing, okay? And you want to take our money by force, but maybe
You're not involving them, you're
maybe you
telling them.
bribe Parliament
But it's-
to pass
but
the law,
it's already been taken.
and you don't involve the people. You know, I brought in a fantastic amendment to that law. To change that tax. To make it voluntary, to cushion. I was looking at poor Kenyans. They were 54, heading to retirement, and you are going to drag their money. So I said, let's cushion people who have mortgages. Let's cushion people who are approaching retirement. Okay, and then we make it voluntary. That if you take the money from me, and you don't give me a chance to buy the house, it can be a saving. In fact, that was marrying with the manifesto of UDA.
But
that
Senator-
law was shut down because of tyranny of numbers on the floor.
But Senator, I have to ask you that the things that you're proposing now, whereby you say that if something needs to be done, let us expand the power that the people have. This power for people has already been placed very clearly in the Constitution. It is very clear that the power is in the hands of the people. It has been delegated to representatives who then form at different levels, right? But we don't follow the Constitution. That's the problem. That you can bring another law. Kenya is tied up in a lot of laws, legalese, frameworks. What do they call this thing?
Commission of Inquiry
Metrics.
reports.
Come on. There's so many of those things.
It's
People
implementation.
spend their time and blood and sweat coming up with these things, and it's as though you do them. It's a dog and pony show. After the thing is done, we move on as though it doesn't matter. The question here is, what is it going to take for let's even start with the Constitution. Forget bar none, all these other things that have been come up with later. If the Constitution in its entirety is being followed and is being adhered to, would we then be faced with all these other shenanigans that we see taking place?
You know, so when you are writing the constitution of any country, and my senior here can confirm, there are two things, there are two concepts. There is what we call the letter and the spirit of the constitution. The constitution is a living document. We must breathe life into it, and that calls for people who actually believe in the constitution to be able to enforce it. Whether the letter is clear or not, you go to the spirit. For example, devolution. You know, in this constitution, we managed to remove the cry for marginalization. We from the north, for the longest time, used to say we are being marginalized. There is no development coming from our regions. But we created the equitable share revenue. We also created in 204, Article 204, the equalization fund. So that today we people from Turkana, the northern frontier districts, have no basis of saying we are being marginalized. You know, and I can see it is the political class that's actually furthering this nonsense of I'm going to go into government so that my people can bring development. And then of course you have the presidency that is buying into that lie that I'm taking development to the people. It is not his money. It's not like he's behaving as if he's dishing out money from his own pocket. This is taxpayers' money. And even if it's a debt, a national debt, it is borrowed in the name of Kenyans. So you cannot say, I'm bringing development, nitawajengea sijui barabara, nitawafanyeni. No, it's not his work. His work is to govern the country. And I think also where we are also failing as a country is, you know, in just the political leadership basically is wrong. From the very beginning. So you are actually like the Senator said, I don't want to repeat it, that UDA did not get the majority in Bunge, but the first thing that the president did was to compromise that parliament so that he can pass it. Recently, after the president accused them of bribery, you had the debate. They went immediately and started a debate in Bunge. And they say, this president, he brought us share to competition. He brought us housing levy to competition. We did it for him. So members of parliament were also not passing legislation with their people in mind.
Beautiful example, because then I have to go back to this question about the independence of these institutions. Because kama tumekufanyia, we did for you. We did for you. And we are expecting this same lot of people to hold the... Can we expect the same lot of people then to hold the president accountable?
Parliament is an extension of the executive, period. You know, if I go back memory lane, even during Kanu's time, I remember during debate time, members of parliament will actually be debating and saying, in my constituency, they will bring actually their constituency concerns into the floor of parliament. And they will actually argue, you know, ask a minister, you know, there is a bridge in my area that's broken, the school. You don't hear those examples anymore. You hear people just saying, you know, we have to pass this law, you know, and the next thing you know, money is passing hands. So we don't have an institution actually.
Which means, like the question that Ndu has asked, these independent institutions that is supposed to oversight the government, that is supposed to speak on behalf of Kenyans, because you look at all these institutions and all that they do enjoy, like the senator here, he enjoys donated power from the people of Nyamira, who gave him that mandate to represent them. But you find that once we get to these parliament, people cede their power. I still stand on that they cede their power and allow themselves to be television, to be controlled using a remote. So here is a question where when you talk about even Senate as we speak right now, there's an entire debate on should senators get the Senate Oversight Fund. CDF is also a big question. And all these is tokens being given for political expediency and maintenance of these political positions. Senator, as we speak today, is the political class really ready for the change that you're talking about? And we talk about also justice in the country. We're being told, you know, mambo watu walikufa, let us compensate them. How can we have compensation without justice?
No. I think first you asked whether institutions work. I think the only reason why I give a lot of credit to our late President Kibaki is because Kibaki allowed institutions to work. Remember, those were the days when President Kibaki would nominate an Attorney General and Parliament would say no. And he would stay back and say, let me respect the decision of Parliament. You know, Daktari who gave us this constitution will tell you that Kenya, what we have is what we call a limited constitution, okay? Where the powers of the president are limited. You get it? The powers of parliament are also limited, okay? We are all being oversighted by this other institution called the judiciary. So if the president was to step back and allow institutions to work, if you stop today from going back to the Moi politics, you know, you want to walk to Turkana, tell the people of Turkana, without me you can never have water. Yet, as the Daktari tells you, that is a devolved function that can be dealt with by our county.
And it is funded.
It is funded. We fight as senators. Every 5 years, I fight so hard to have a formula that guarantees that all the 47 counties will fairly and equitably get resources that can enable them to do the functions that are assigned to counties. But the president wants to demonstrate to people that you will never survive unless I come to you and dish goodies. You have to do extra constitutional governance, where you call people and make a declaration. You know, Moi, we used to call him Baba na Mama. That is the same concept that President William Ruto wants to bring.
But Senator is a Kanu surrogate.
But Senator can't.
You see, the Constitution, the Constitution distributes power. Okay? I told you that if you read the budget making process, MDAs, ministries, department agencies will make a proposal, okay, on how they intend to implement Vision 2030. Because everything is documented. Vision 2030 is reduced to midterm plans, 5 years, okay? And then they look at the broader development needs of the country, and then they make proposals, come to Parliament, and in Parliament, we do public participation, okay? And then finally, you allow the government now to spend. You do an appropriation. But, you know, I find members of parliament who are even lawyers. They go back to their people, their constituents, and say, you know, I have to be in government so that my constituents gets development. Yet that power has been donated to you. It says in Article 95 that Parliament deliberates and debates on issues of concern to the people, including development. You get it? Now, the power has also been given to you as a citizen. Under Article 104, Ekuru wrote that in the Constitution. He was the secretary. They said in Article 1, if you think your member of parliament is not meeting the bill, recall him.
That's interesting, because even as you say that, the newly instituted IEBC basically said, interesting enough, in Kenya of all countries, that they don't have enough laws, framework, to then be able to set up the procedure where members of parliament can be recalled. That's one. So even in that, where Kenyans would rise up and say, you know what, we want to recall our members of parliament. What does the body that has been constituted to run over such things tell you? Well, actually, you know what, we don't have enough framework to have this done. In the same breath, you want to say Kenyans are up in arms and they say, we are not happy with the way things are. We want to protest. They're killed.
Yeah,
so they want to go the way of the law.
And another
they're
thing,
told there's not enough framework. What should Kenyans do?
Yeah, so the framework, you know, there was a law in place, but a number of sections were quashed by
It was undermined by Parliament.
Okay, a number of clauses were quashed, so that can be worked on. But there is also another issue you raised of CDF. You know, I think last week,
NGC.
Last week, my governor was in Parliament, you know, and he tabled his finances before us. And one of the key issues he told us is that, you know, my government is giving bursary to students. And when I went through, I found a case of students who had been called to Alliance High School. I don't know that you are an alumni of Alliance. And do you know how much bursary he had given those students? 3,100. And he has prepared a big booklet saying, I'm supporting students through bursary. 3,100. I think fees in Alliance is about 108,000 shillings. You give somebody 3,100 and you want to tell the citizens of Nyamira that we give bursary to students. What am I saying? This debate, Daktari, about CDF is all nonsense. If you go to the US, The US has a scheme where they support needy students fully. In fact, you go to university, the government will give you $7,800 to support your education a whole year. And if you don't spend, if the university doesn't take all that money for the purposes of tuition, they'll give you the balance to buy books and support yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? And they do it directly to the student. Why do you want in this country to create a system where the treasury will sit down and say, we are going to send money to the CDF board, okay? Then the CDF board will say, now I'll send this money down to the member of parliament. Then the member of parliament will tell people, come and queue in my office, pick forms, I will evaluate through my team the needs for your bursary. Then at the end of the day, give you 2,000.
Pay directly to the institution.
Yeah.
If we want to support our children, I went to school in the 90s, and the government fully paid for my university education. When I finished, I paid. Nobody, I don't think the government knew where I come from. They only knew that this is a bright student and he must get a right, which is now in Article 43, a right to education. And they paid for me. I only looked for University of Nairobi. I'd never been to Nairobi. I just looked for University of Nairobi, took a bus, was escorted by my uncle to Nairobi, and he took me to university, and I settled. Accommodation was there, fees was paid for me, and I finished my school. Then I paid. Why do we want to dehumanize
The bureaucracy.
the education of this country and politicize it by saying that you want to put CDF in the constitution so that children can go to the member of parliament to get CDF? Let us have a policy that says everybody will get a right to education and the government will support that right. When you finish, you can now follow me to repay you back. The benchmarking you spoke about, we can benchmark in many countries. But this idea of giving people 2,000 shillings and then you tell them that the government is supporting, that is nonsense.
Should this?
The SHA issue. You know, if you go to countries where you are implementing universal health coverage, you go to Australia, as a senior citizen, if the government tells you that you are a beneficiary of universal health coverage,
Yes.
you go to a public hospital, you consult the doctor, they prescribe medicine for you, you walk to a chemist, they'll dispense drugs, they will bill the government directly.
And the government pays directly.
And the government pays directly. But here, what you have under this nonsense called SHA is people go to hospital, you incur a bill of 2 million, then the government tells you SHA will pay 130. Look for the balance. You go to our senior citizens, retired people who are, trying to deal with lifestyle diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure. They walk into county hospitals, they don't get the drugs, then they are told, go and buy the drug from the chemists. And there is no refund. So it's not working. What Dr. told you about the aspirations that we had at independence, it's not working. If the government wants us to have universal health coverage, then we must have something that is meaningful and beneficial to our people. You get full health coverage.
We must actually equip our hospitals.
And appreciate that the public hospitals don't have capacity to treat all of us. That's a fact.
Do senators need the Senate Oversight Fund for them to do what it is they're supposed to do, oversight anyway?
I will not have a problem with oversight because that is what actually is in the Constitution.
No,
the main role,
the oversight fund.
The oversight, I mean, if it is, I interpret oversight fund to mean that you need to have structures in place. It's not money for you to eat. It's money for you to.
It's actually, there's a provision.
It is money. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oversight money is okay because what you are saying is you need staff in the office who can assist you to oversight how money is spent. If the Auditor General has filed a report and he says, I went to the ground and I saw these projects were in the budget, and the report I have is that these projects have already been done, I believe oversight means that Office of Senator needs to have maybe an engineer or a fiscal expert who can also counter-check that what you are being told, because there can be collusion between the government office and an auditor. So the oversight is to give capacity to the office, because a senator cannot go to all the projects in the counties and come and say whether what the auditor is saying is true or not. So if it's about capacity, and I think this should be for the entire parliament, member of National Assembly and senators should have an oversight fund that should improve the institutional capacity of that office to undertake oversight. I don't think, Dr. you have a problem.
I have a different opinion.
Yeah.
First of all, that's another wastage of money that Kenyans actually need in the various institutions. I think what we could do, Senator, my view is that if Parliament, including Senate, were keen to read the report of the Auditor General, because the Auditor General spends about 6 months or if not more investigating how money is being spent, and actually files a report that actually incriminates almost all these offices, right from even the office of the president up to departments of government. But that report is never implemented. That report, even when it is debated in Parliament, parliamentarians do not actually now oversight. So I don't think we need to send any more money to senators or even to members of Parliament. If we were just to implement the Auditor General report and the raw intelligence that the president says he receives through these institutions, and we see people actually going to jail, because you see, what parliamentarians have done, and this is where this accountability measure is becoming elusive. When the Auditor General makes findings, parliamentarians turn them into now questions. That report, by the time he pens it down, he has actually made a finding, because he cajoles you. Can you confirm this road you built? Can you confirm this hospital, this school, and this, that? And if you cannot, then he does his report. So his report is a finding of an expenditure of the money. So what the parliamentarian needs to do, and the government of the day, is to put, and I work with accountants, and they tell me, when you read the Auditor General report, and Senator is a senior lawyer to me, if I put the auditor on the stand and ask him question about misuse of funds here, most accountants will tell me I don't even need 20 minutes, because it's already a finding. In cross-examination, he'll confirm that this governor stole. Actually, it's just theft of money. You know what they're calling corruption in this country? It's actually theft of public resources.
Right, it is. It's theft.
It's theft.
It's theft.
So, and honestly, in the law of evidence, I won't take too much time just to confirm. If I put an auditor, an accountant in the dock to confirm.
Let's get through this process and ask ourselves a question then around what it would actually take, because that's essentially what we are saying today. That if you talk to the president today and ask certain things to be done to claw back, and unfortunately some of the regression that the nation has gone through, you want to ask certain questions. And again, we've given the examples. If we go to the process through which for president of Bangladesh or Singapore, then went through a process and was jailed, that there was a petition that was raised, that there were independent bodies that then got involved. There was a court process that took place. There was a prosecutor, and then there was a finding. Beyond the finding, then there were bodies who then did the actual taking of this individual from point A to point B and jailing them. Now, I'm looking through each and every one of those levels of process, and I'm asking the question. Senator is smiling because he knows where I'm going. In Kenya today, from the point of somebody raising a petition, leave alone raising a petition for a deputy president to be impeached, because there was a lot of political fiasco around what that actually was. But if we are talking about a process whereby somebody will be held accountable after it has been found out that certain things have taken place, I am wondering who would do that in Kenya today. Members of Parliament,
I have a burning,
the EACC,
I have a burning issue.
the DCI,
Citizens.
the NPS, the OPP.
I have a burning issue.
Who are the ones
I have a
who
burning
would do
issue
this
I
in
really want to
Kenya?
raise, and I think I want the senator to respond to it.
Okay.
You see, one of the reasons why these institutions you list are actually failing Kenyans is because of the manner in which they are being appointed. Yeah? For example, I don't like talk about the dead people, but it was like, for example, they let Chebukati. He wasn't the best. I think he was the bottom of the list when he was picked to be chairman. There's a lot of compromise in appointments. But again, I'm surprised, Kenyans are surprised the fact that this presidency does not respect the constitution. Kenyans have got such a short memory. William Ruto mounted a no campaign against this constitution. Yeah. So why are Kenyans surprised that the spirit and even the letter of the constitution is not being implemented? But to the point I'm making on this institution, if you look at the manner in which these institutions are they're appointing people. Like now, my younger brother, Erastus Ethekon, is being painted as if he's being given this thing because he's a Turkana, or is it because Nanok is in State House? That people are failing to look at the qualifications of this new chairman. The guy is well read, he's so competent, he's worked in international agencies like the UNDP and others. He's a guy, his CV is big. And so, but now, the way the image is being painted, he's just been given because he's a marginalized from a small community. I mean, let's look at the competence of people. But it's also true that there is always the presidency, the appointing authority is always hunting for people who actually would be pro them. And that's why you find, I mean, we lawyers today got surprised. Some of us got surprised when the DPP was appointed. Okay, we barely knew him.
Oh, this guy.
Yes. So there's that element of, and I can see from the headlines that people are saying he was one of the guys who is failing us in terms of prosecuting, So you can report, a crime. Then there was all these bureaucracy approvals and all that. ESCC, now I'm told, I mean, they maybe should invite them here one day. Yeah. One of the most lucrative businesses now is to investigate corruption. So you're a government.
Yeah, but I want you to both address this issue, please.
Yeah.
Today, I'm going to repeat it for all avoidance of doubt. Today, if there is a motion that should be brought against let's not even go to the president. Let's even go to a cabinet secretary. Okay, then maybe let's go to the deputy president. Because, no, actually, you know what? Let's stay with the president, because these are the examples that we're being given. It's presidents that are being jailed in different parts of the world. A petition has been brought about by, in two cases, one, a private citizen, another one, a member of their parliament. Okay, and this is how the cases then progressed towards whereby there was an arrest, there was bail that was granted, and then the court procedure started. This is well after their stay in office. One, a sitting president. Okay, so they went through the process. A judge, judiciary, arm of government, same people, same idea, sat. So that's out the window. Who is this person that we're saying, look, we're giving examples. Look at these jurisdictions, let's do like that.
You want to look at Kenya being South Korea.
Or Sri Lanka.
Or Sri Lanka. The accountability mechanism in South Korea is so clear that even Parliament itself can initiate the process. They impeach the president, okay? And then after the impeachment, the other institutions, the ones you are mentioning, come in.
Kenya's constitution.
So what you are simply telling us, you are looking at a situation in Kenya where Parliament starts by impeaching the president, because that's the only way you can remove his immunity. Yes. Because currently he enjoys immunity against any criminal prosecution. Okay, so the best institution would be Parliament starts the initiation, National Assembly impeach him, then you strip him of immunity. Then the other institutions can step in. But the statement you're making is that we have not risen to the occasion. I saw the other day in DRC. In DRC, a president is taken like a senator, and you get the title of a live senator, and you enjoy immunity against prosecution. But when the civil strife broke out, and the President Kabila flew in and went to Goma, there was that perception that he was the one who was either funding or organizing the rebellion against the sitting president. So the Senate moved in very quickly, and they moved a motion to strip him of the immunity. And only 5 senators sided with Kabila. So he was stripped of that immunity. Now he has an active investigation ongoing against him. So to answer you, that is how the process should work here. The institutions are there. You know, like now we expect these things we have asked about anti-money laundering and everything. We expect NSIs to give us a report. We expect the DCI. We expect EACC, because you don't expect really Parliament to be people who can investigate and take somebody to court.
Yeah.
And you will be surprised that the framers of our constitution had all the good intentions. Permanent secretaries are supposed to be appointed through a process that is competitive, that is fair, that is non-political. You make an application to Public Service Commission. But word out there is that the executive sends a list. He says that process is just ticking the boxes that an interview took place. But do an interview for 3 minutes each, and this is the list of the people we want.
Okay.
You get it? The DPP is supposed to be picked through a process that is credible.
Yes.
There are stakeholders, the president has to participate, then you
And he can even initiate investigation on his own motion, but he has never done.
Yeah.
It's expected
Yeah.
that
So
they would.
what other countries have done is they warned themselves. Maybe this is where you didn't warn yourself, Doctor, when you wrote this constitution. Some countries warned themselves that situations may arise where those who are holding office may find themselves conflicted, that they may not take action. A good example is the US. The US, the Department of Justice, has a way that they can go around it. If you find a case that is so political, where you as a Department of Justice think you are very conflicted, okay? But it is in public interest that an investigation takes place. They appoint what they call a special counsel. That is an independent person outside. It could be, maybe Ekuru is a presidential candidate, we can't pick him. But if he was not in politics, you pick somebody like Ekuru.
I'm still a lawyer.
But if you can convince us that he's impartial. So what the US does is that you pick a special counsel who is not in government, who cannot be seen to be conflicted, whose agenda will be to push the public interest. An example is what happened in the Trump case. Trump case was
Even in our case,
investigated by a special counsel. So the special counsel does the investigation and makes the recommendation on how to prosecute. So maybe now that we are at 15 years since the inception of our constitution, I think time has come for us to review the performance of our constitution and propose some changes. Because I believe if you get a case like this anti-money laundering issue, if you pick an independent lawyer, a senior lawyer out there, okay, who doesn't feel like I'm conflicted, I'm still going to continue serving under this executive, he investigates that case and then makes recommendation for prosecution, and somebody else does the prosecution.
And does
because to be very candid, we were in church yesterday, we were in church on Sunday. If we were to be very honest, none of these institutions we have here can investigate
And there's the answer to the
high-level
question.
executive. The only office that I must give credit to is the Auditor General.
General's office.
Okay.
That lady says it as is.
Yes.
She says it as is. If you go through the report, you will see mega scandals that happen in the national government and in the county government. That is the only institution that I can pick this morning and say, for the ladies of this country, you can walk tall.
All right.
But there's something I did. You remember, I don't know if they remember our petition against the deployment of our Kenya police to Haiti.
Yes.
I sued Ruto in that petition. And that suit was not trying to criminalize his action, but to say that he has actually violated our constitution, at Chapter 14 on national security, by deploying our national police service outside the jurisdiction of Kenya. Yeah. Of course, the judge agreed with the petition finally, but he excused the president. And I think if there's one thing that actually we need to amend now that the constitution is turning 15 this month, we need to criminalize the violation of the constitution. Because you cannot swear to say that I uphold, I protect this constitution, then you go on to violate it, to disrespect it. Because it actually goes against even Article 10, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and all the, Article 1, if you look at from the preamble to Article 1, all that. A person who have entrusted to protect and uphold our constitution. Now he's violating it. We must fight. There has to be a mechanism of punishing this person, even if it's not means sending them to jail.
All right.
Yeah.
This is what the conversation is. Senator Omgeni he says that he's got great expectations. There's a book by Charles Dickens. It's called Great Expectations. Their expectations were great as well. One for us to watch and hear. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here this morning. Necessary for us to look into some of these things. Senator for Nyamira County is Senator Omgeni Okongo, and he's been here with us this morning. And Dr. Ekuru Court is the party leader for Third Way Alliance. Gentlemen,
thanks for having us on the show.
Well done, Asante. It's 25 minutes to now 9 o'clock. Thanks for being here and extending that time with us. It continues. Good morning.
Thank you. Yep.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your
Get
day.
ready for non-stop adventure with Star Times. Join your favorite heroes and dive